So, it's Rich Mogull, going to be talking about data breaches today. And this is kind of interesting. So, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started my first version of this presentation. I used to be a research vice president over at Gartner, and I used this particular title, Involuntary Case Studies of Data Breaches. And then I left Gartner, went on my own. I had to change the title, but basically did the same thing. Source Boston, the very first one was the first time I kind of gave this publicly again. And I kind of put it on the shelf a little bit. And the goal of this presentation is to get a sense of, it's easier to tell you the inspiration. So a few years ago, I was involved in a planning thing with a large energy company, one of the big gas companies. And one of the presentations I saw there just kind of blew me away. It was, I can't remember his name, it was the guy that wrote the Resilient Enterprise. And it was a lot of the same principles we talked about in terms of resiliency, survivability within organizations. But he talked about the real case studies of real companies and what happened there. Now, this is great. This puts it in such wonderful context. We don't really have anything like that in security, mostly because we're never able to talk about it. And so what I did is I spent a lot of time doing research on various breaches, on the history of breaches, and some of this, pretty much everything we're going to talk about today is public. There'll be a few things that might slip out, but you'll never know the attribution to that, so it should be okay in terms of how things happen. They'll all be genericized enough. And the main goal is, when we look at history, the reason this stuff is important, this is even better. So the reason this stuff is important, and what we're trying to do today is provide the context around breaches. So instead of looking at, it's the new APT threat today, or it's the biggest thing this day, it's the biggest thing that day, what I want to try and do over the next 50 minutes is give you a sense of basically how this has evolved over time. And by over time, I mean starting in 1903, without getting too crazy history stuff. Until modern day, doing so with a lot of specific details. Because everybody says, if you don't know those who don't understand the mistakes of the past are due to repeat it. I don't care how well you understand the mistakes of the past, you're still due to repeat it. Anybody here date more than one person in their life? Yeah. I had multiple bad breakups, and I did the same dumbass stuff every single time. And thank God I finally found my wife who, puts up with all of my garbage. That's the only, by the way men get married is they find someone putting up with their stuff. It's not because someone actually but we'll leave those bits out. Because it's pretty much human nature. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make the same mistakes we made yesterday. We're going to keep making those mistakes. And while the past informs us about the future is actually called the future for a reason. It's sort of unpredictable. Everyone says, this happened in X date, or cloud computing is just mainframe all over again. That's bullshit, okay? Just because something happened one way in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen that way in the future. The past informs the future, but does not define the future. And so what our goal is today is to pick out the best nuggets that we can to help make better decisions in the future, knowing that we're not going to be able to fully predict it from a technical level, from a process level, or anything else, and to do that in the greatest degree possible. So this is the stuff that I spent entirely too much time working on. What we're going to do is a 3D visual timeline I built, and I guess we can't get the lights. Can we just blow the lights for the whole room? Is that possible? There's a lot of anyway. Is there a switch someplace? Because I just want it's going to be hard to see that there and other lights. Because of the partition. So we're going to walk through this basically visual timeline of the data breaches and go into the specific details. And the one that I've got up right now, this is from 1953. I actually skipped the 1903 one, which is when the Dataloss Database comes up. And by the way, the timeline was built primarily using the Dataloss Database, thank you to the Open Security Foundation. And plus, I've added some of my own events onto that as well. This is a case where pure union books reported stolen, and social security numbers and some other payment information for a bunch of employees of the Peer Workers Union was lost. And this is in the press and in the papers. So it's not like the data breaches we got actually all started today. As we zoom up, back in 1984, that's one of the first cases we found where it was a computer hacking case. There's a good example here. And so the newspaper article, computer hackers steal code to credit rating bureau system. So we don't know if they stole any of the credit rating stuff, but what we do know is that in this particular case, some unknown hackers, and this came out on some mailing lists and stuff, because, I mean, this is pre, almost all of the internet days. And basically over dial-up lines and doing insider stuff, they managed to get the code from the PRW reporting system. And I think they did it using credentials from Sears. So kind of a common sort of a breach that we have. And then as we zoom forward a little bit, we get into one that's near and dear to my heart, December 23rd, the year 2000, egghead.com. So I woke up on the morning of December 22nd, and I found this in my email. This was the first time that I was subject to a data breach. This is a message from the CEO of egghead.com, because I was a geek apparently in 2000. Yeah, I know. Yeah, go figures. So, I woke up, I put my stuffed Captain Kirk and Spock on the sides of the bed. I lifted up my Star Wars sheets, the original ones, which are now back. Mine were a little threadbare at the time. Opened up my email, and this is what I got. I bought some stuff online at Egghead. And so the result of buying that stuff online at Egghead was free. Now, this is kind of an interesting story, actually. Anybody else remember this one, involved with this one? Did you lose stuff? Admit it. You got nailed?
I was included, but didn't get nailed.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows. We don't know the actual fraud tied to this. There were denials that there was anything actually lost, and then I found some reports later that said it probably was lost. They detected the intrusion on December 18th. Now, if you're a retailer and you find something, say, somewhere around December 18th, how do you feel? What happens, 7 days later? Yeah. They contacted Kroll to do the investigation. They notified the credit card companies, and on December 22nd, they had to notify all their customers, and they had to start canceling and reissuing cards December 22nd. Yeah. Yeah, not good. My card didn't get reissued, so my bank must suck ass or something along those lines, but a bunch of the other ones. This is Source. I use bad language in Source. If I do that at RSA, I get bad evaluation. So you're going to be offended by the bad language, speak now or don't write an evaluation. So they did a 20-day investigation. They said, well, we don't think any credit card information was lost. When I did the research, they had a certain level of detail about what was penetrated, doing the forensic investigations, the log, and everything else. They were actually monitoring fraud levels. Keep that in mind. It's going to come up later. And then, they ended up filing for bankruptcy later that year. These things happened. And they were acquired by Amazon on November 26th. So, what did we learn from this? Well, it was really interesting. Most people thought, who here would think they went out of business with the breach right around Christmas? Anyone? It turns out that had nothing to do. And at Gartner, when I was still working at Gartner at the time, there was all this stuff in the press, never disclosed. Egghead went out of business. I mean, that's what was going on within the industry press for those of you who were in security back then. Well, if you did the research, you look at their numbers, Egghead was tanking long before this breach. They had gone from having physical stores to online-only stores, bad business. There's always crazy, you actually read the stories. I wish I could spend a whole hour talking about how screwed up they were in terms of the business management. And everybody equated this with the breach. I had access to the Nielsen numbers, the web tracking numbers at the time. Nielsen bought the company. And it turns out that their numbers were going way down before this ever happened. So they had nothing to do with the breach. And it inspired a short generation of about 5 years, where nobody would talk about a breach. And when I was in with customers, when I was working with users about breach, and they were asking occasionally for assistance with Gartner, I don't know why, they would never want to disclose or never disclose. Well, look what happened to Egghead. We don't want to end up like that, without really knowing the facts behind the situation. So the metrics report showed that that wasn't true. And the reality is we learned the wrong lesson from that particular breach. Well, let's start back into our timeline here and move forward a little bit. We've got some of the breaches here. I'm not going to go into the ultimate detail on all these. Ziv Davis, November 28th, hundreds of credit cards. Anyone remember that one? That actually ended up going to the FTC. And ZD had to pay reparations to the people whose credit cards were lost in that one. It was an online system. People were giving credit cards to buy one of their services or something else over at ZD. It got popped. I can't remember the details of how it got popped. And as a result, they went ahead, FTC ruled against them. They had to be credit monitoring as usual. Not that credit monitoring really does anything, but it's such a deal. One of my favorites was Ford Experian and Ford Motor Credit Company. Anyone remember this one? This one was, this is really interesting. So this was one of the first